Welcome to Worship with Eliot Unitarian Chapel. Wherever you are tuning in from near or far, we are so glad that you're here. I am Eliot's lead minister, the Reverend Barbara Gadon, and I hope that this is a service that nurtures your spirit. If you are new to Eliot Chapel, we are an intentional community that welcomes all races, all genders, and all sexual orientations. We welcome people of all creeds and beliefs, all economic circumstances, and all types of families. Our vision is to create a just world through vibrant, beloved community. If you would like to connect with us and learn more about our congregation, please look for information at the end of the service. Welcome to Eliot Chapel. Our call to worship this morning is by the Reverend Susan Davison Archer. The air is warming, the bird song increases, the sweeter breezes brush our cheeks, and the earth holds hope in its seeds and buds. Come, let us gather this morning with a joyful noise, with warm hearts, and with hopeful spirits, for we are one with the renewal of the earth and blessedly held in the love of one another. Come, let us worship.
We come in a variety of colors, shapes, and sizes. Some of us grow in bunches. Some of us grow alone. And some of us are cupped inward. Some of us spread ourselves out wide. And some of us are old and dried and to get tougher than we appear.
Some of us are still in bud. Some of us grow low to the ground. And some of us stretch toward the sun. Some of us feel like weeds sometimes.
Some of us carry seeds sometimes. Some of us are prickly sometimes. Some of us smell. And all of us are beautiful.
We light this chalice to honor the beauty and variety and strength of this gathered community.
Spirit, Father Spirit, where are you? In the sky song, in the forest sounds your cry. What to give you, what to call you, where am I? Many drops are in the ocean, deep and wide. Sunlight bounces off the to the sky. What to give you, what to call you, who am I? I am empty, time flies from me, what is time? Dreams eternal, fears infernal haunt my heart. What to give you, what to call you, oh my God. Mother Spirit, Father Spirit, take our hearts, take our breath and let our voices sing our parts. Take our hands and let us work to shape our art.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another Time for All Ages. Miss Noel here, and I'll be reading The Tiny Seed by Eric Carle. It is autumn. A strong wind is blowing. It blows flower seeds high in the air and carries them far across the land. One of the seeds is tiny, smaller than any of the others. It will be able to keep up with the others? And where are they all going? One of the seeds flies higher than the others. Up, up it goes. It flies too high, and the sun's hot rays burn it up. But the tiny seed sails on with the others. Another seed lands on a tall and icy mountain. The ice never melts, and the seed cannot grow. The rest of the seeds fly on, but the tiny seed does not go as fast as the others. Now they fly over the ocean. One seed falls into the water and drowns. The others sail on with the wind, but the tiny seed does not go as high as the others. One seed drifts down onto the desert. It is hot and dry, and the seed cannot grow. Now the tiny seed is flying very low, but the wind pushes it on with the others. Finally, the wind stops, and the seeds fall gently down on the ground. A bird comes by and eats one seed. The tiny seed is not eaten. It is so small that the bird does not see it. Now it is winter. After their long trip, the seeds settle down. They look just as if they are going to sleep in the earth. Snow falls and covers them like a soft white blanket. A hungry mouse that also lives in the ground eats a seed for their lunch. But the tiny seed lies very still, and the mouse does not see it. Can you see the mouse? Now it is spring. After a few months, the snow has melted. It is really spring. Birds fly by, the sun shines, rain falls. The seeds grow so round and full, they start to burst open a little. Now they are not seeds anymore. They are plants. First, they send roots down into the earth. Then their little stems and leaves begin to grow up toward the sun and air. There is another plant that grows much faster than the new little plants. It is a big, fat weed. Ugh. And it takes all the sunlight and the rain away from one of the small new plants. And that little plant dies. The tiny seed hasn't begun to grow yet. It will be too late. Hurry! But finally it too starts to grow into a plant. The warm weather also brings the children out to play. They too have been waiting for the sun and springtime. One child doesn't see the plants, and they run along and, oh, they break one. Now it cannot grow anymore. The tiny plant that grew from the tiny seed is growing fast, but its neighbor grows even faster. Before the tiny plant has 3 leaves, the other plant has 7. And look, a bud, and now even a flower? But what is happening? First, there are footsteps. Then a shadow looms over them. Then a hand reaches down and breaks off the flower. A human has picked the flower to give to a friend. It is summer. Now the tiny plant from the tiny seed is all alone. It grows on and on. It doesn't stop. The sun shines on it and the rain waters it. It has many leaves. It grows taller and taller. It is taller than the people. It is taller than the trees. It is taller than the houses. And now a flower grows on it. People come from far and near to look at this flower. It is the tallest flower they have ever seen. It is a giant flower. All summer long, the birds and bees and butterflies come visiting. They have never seen such a big and beautiful flower. Now it is autumn again. The days grow shorter. The nights grow cooler. And the wind carries yellow and red leaves past the flower. Some petals drop from the giant flower, and they sail along with the bright leaves over the land and down to the ground. The wind blows harder. The flower has lost almost all of its petals. It sways and bends away from the wind. But the wind grows stronger and shakes the flower. Once more, the wind shakes the flower, and this time, the flower's seed pod opens. Out come many tiny seeds that quickly sail far away on the wind. And so the process repeats. Well, that's our story. Thank you for joining me. Have a great morning.
Our meditation this morning is called That Vase of Lilacs by K. Ryan. Not just lilacs are like that. Other purples also leave us vacant portals, susceptible to vagrant spirits. But take that vase of lilacs, who goes near it is erased. In spite of Proust, the senses don't attach us to a place or time. We are used by sweetness, taken, defenseless, invaded by a line of Saracens, Picts, Angles, double rows of fragrance-loving ancients. People matched casually by nose in an impersonal and intermittent immortality of purple. Spirit of life, sometimes wafting like a sweet breeze through flowers, sometimes gusting in around us, powerful enough to knock us down. Help us move through the world aware of the ancestors, feeling their company, their courage, their goodness, and even their failings. Help us to find hope in each full breath, charged with remembering those who planted us as seeds. Help us to carry forward the good news of their dreaming, the planting in hope of human caring and perseverance and imperfect but always good enough love.
These Roses by Ralph Waldo Emerson. These roses under my window make no reference to former roses or to better ones. They are for what they are. They exist with God today. There is no time to them. There is simply the rose. It is perfect in every moment of its existence. Before a leaf bud has burst, its whole life acts. In the full-blown flower there is no more. In the leafless root there is no less. Its nature is satisfied. It satisfies nature in all moments alike. There is no time to it. But man postpones or remembers. He does not live in the present, but with reverted eye laments the past, or heedless of the riches that surround him, stands on tiptoe to foresee the future. He cannot be happy and strong until he too lives with nature in the present, above time.
One of the traditions here at Eliot Chapel that we really treasure is the tradition of giving away half of our offering every Sunday to an organization in the community that is working to put values that we treasure into action, to make them real. And this month, the organization we've chosen is Metropolitan Congregations United, of which we are a member congregation. Metropolitan Congregations United puts faith into action by developing leaders who move their congregations, organizations, and communities to change public policy for the common good. The leadership of Metropolitan's congregation is diverse and exceptional. One of the issues they've been working on really hard, for instance, is to take down the school to prison pipeline. African American children in our community are much more likely to end up in juvenile detention, much more likely to end up in prison. And this process starts in their schools. And so we have been working in partnership with Metropolitan Congregations United to end this. It has to stop. It has to stop damaging our community and damaging our families. Just to give you a little taste of how things are done at Metropolitan Congregations United, I've got a little snippet of their last annual meeting.
The goal of this meeting is to remind us, as we live through this historic confluence of COVID-19 and American racism, that the work we're doing to protect the right to vote and to ensure participation in an equitable democratic process is indeed sacred work, worthy of our lives. Even now, the highest offices in this state and in this country are determined, and we can see it almost wherever we look, to show us that Black life will only matter as a means to white supremacist progress. We are gathered today to reject this lie. We've come together because even now, the voice of the divine urges us to press on for freedom and justice. I thought that we should first acknowledge that we're pressing on right now in the work of freedom and justice in a historically difficult moment. We're organizing, y'all, for change and resisting state oppression in the midst of a global pandemic. And that pandemic is taxing our social and emotional resources in ways that are unprecedented. And so as we open, I just want to invite us to be mindful of our breath this afternoon. In moments like these, it's crucial for us to be honest with ourselves and others about how we are doing and how we are feeling, even if we don't have time for lengthy exchanges on this call. It's crucial that we're honest with ourselves and that we prioritize self-care, because one of the trademarks of white supremacy is allowing humans to labor and suffer with little to no acknowledgement. And so we resist that. Friends, in this moment, as we gather to press on, it is okay if you find yourself laboring with significantly less fuel. It is okay if you're finding yourself in need of more or new or different kinds of rest so that you can show up to work in whole and healthy ways. Family, it is okay. It is even okay to not be okay right now. It's okay if you're finding yourself at the end of your wits or with your faith seeming to waver. Regardless of how you are feeling right now, it is okay, and you are not alone. You are invited. We are invited to be fully here, just as we are.
So what we see in this section is that not only does Metropolitan Congregations United push forward, but it also takes care of the people who are leading, who are organizing, who are emptying their hearts into the issues that matter so much to them. Our goal this month is to raise $1,300 through our shared plate, with $650 going to MCU and $650 going to Eliot Chapel's many life-sustaining ministries. Let us be a generous people.
The reading this morning is Seeds by Meg Barnhouse. Who are my children? One's a baker in Cairo with flour on her cheek. One's a banker in Oslo with dreams of playing in a tuba band. One child lives in the mountains of Peru and loves to watch the Oscars. I have a son who's a monk in Kathmandu and has a bird he's taught to whistle. And a starving daughter in Kinshasa dreams of running in the Olympics. One of our cousins is a pine tree on the side of a mountain in Japan. And one is a catfish drowsing in the Mississippi mud. One cousin is a bear in North Carolina, and one is a butterfly in Finland. The woman held an apple seed in her hand, held it to the sun. It's easy to count the number of seeds in an apple, she said, but tell me, how many apples are in this seed? How many apples are in this seed? How many generations are in this child? This ends the reading.
So there's a story behind flower communion, and the telling is part of the ritual. The community that began it is part of our family of faith, and they are a part of us. When we tell this story, we claim them as our ancestors. Once, 100 years ago, there lived a minister named Norbert Čapek. He was a Czech national living in Newark, New Jersey. He was a Baptist minister, but got a little too liberal for the Baptists, and a good friend suggested that he try the Unitarians. He and his wife, Maya, took Unitarianism to Czechoslovakia in 1921 and formed the first Unitarian church in Prague. People in Prague were drawn to a church that offered a freedom of belief within community, a community of caring and courage. But despite the joy of this spiritual freedom, Čapek noticed that there was something missing. His people were missing the rituals that had bound them together. Traditional communion had just too many associations with oppressive creeds. So he wanted to create something new, something that respected everyone individually, but also held them together. So he looked around him and he saw flowers, an abundance of flowers along the roadside, in people's gardens, in flower stands in the market. He saw incredible beauty and variety. So he created this ritual that honors the unique beauty of every person and the collective beauty of the community that we form together. The Congregation of Prague observed their first flower communion, much as we do. People brought a few flowers to church, and as they entered, put their offerings in a common vase up front. As they left the service, they took home a different flower to represent the community going with them. As we see in our celebrations, there was a great variety of flowers, and that was the point. Someone's prized roses alongside daisies that had been growing along in the sidewalk, large, lush peonies, tiny violets, a dandelion or two. Every flower, every person were valued. You could call it the gospel of flower communion. Year upon year, they held this ritual. They spread this gospel, and one celebration blended into another. It helped to lighten their hearts with the spring. By 1930, the Prague government recognized them as a church. And when the Nazis took control of Prague in 1940, they found Dr. Čapek and his gospel of the flower communion to be, as Nazi court records show, too dangerous to the Reich for him to be allowed to live. In March of 1941, Čapek and his daughter were arrested by the Gestapo, who confiscated his books and sermons. And in 1941, the congregation observed flower communion as they waited and prayed for his return. In 1942, he was taken to Dachau concentration camp and was killed. Their hearts were heavy and unimaginably shattered with this loss. And they held flower communion to honor him and to carry forward his message of hope and decency and his love of differences. Maya Chapek Norbert's widow also served as a Unitarian minister and brought the flower communion to the United States. Today, it is practiced in almost every Unitarian Universalist community in America. At Eliot Chapel, dozens of flower communion services have been held over the years, and they tend to blur together. Two will stand out for us, I think, last year and this year, when we held celebrations in spite of separation, in spite of the losses, and in spite of uncertainty. In spite of all of this, we come with our offerings. We proclaim the flower communion gospel that everyone is different, everyone is valued, no matter what someone in power may say, and it is our calling to speak up and not be silent. There is beauty and variety in a big bouquet of people who are unique and different. Some of you came into the church a week ago to share a flower with the community. Actually, you didn't come into the church, you came on to our grounds. Big thanks to Linda Cummings and Rebecca Suter for making a gracious table under the awning for us to come. Pastoral Care Associates took bouquets from us to nursing homes nearby and to bring to our community's love and caring to the people there. And we shared photographs of all of that. And others of you took photographs of your flowers and shared them. And we've created the montage you're about to see. Thank you, everyone who helped to create our ritual this year. Community matters. Connection matters. Courage matters. And you make a difference. Amen.
Whenever Dr. Čapek conducted his flower communion in Prague, he would say this proverb as he consecrated the flowers. Infinite Spirit of life, we ask thy blessing on these, thy messengers of fellowship and love. May they remind us, amid diversities of knowledge and of gifts, to be one in desire and affection and devotion to thy holy will. May they also remind us of the value of comradeship, of doing and sharing alike. May we cherish friendship as one of thy precious gifts. May we not let awareness of another's talents discourage us or sully our relationships, but may we realize that whatever we can do, great or small, the efforts of all of us are needed to do thy work in the world.
Now may the love which heals all wounds, which overcomes all differences, which puts to flight all fears, which reconciles all who are separated, be in us and among us, now and always. Go in peace.